Okay, Nick and Andy, the fallout from the Europa League final in Bilbao continues. Obviously, Spurs are delighted. Ange Postecoglou got his trophy, like he always said he would do in the second season. But Ruben Amorim, that caps off a pretty miserable first 6 months or so in charge of United for him, losing the way they did in the final. Nick, some strange comments from him after the game saying, look, I'll go without any compensation. I'll leave if the fans on the board don't want me. I'll leave right now. What do you make of all this? And I have a bit of sympathy for him because he kind of very openly said didn't really want to come until the end of this season and to try and figure it all out then. But this is a mess for Amorim and for Manchester United. And at the moment, I can't see really a clear way out of it to success for both him and United.
I have a ton of sympathy for him. I mean, as much as you can have sympathy for someone who makes millions and millions of pounds. I say this pretty wholeheartedly. The fact that he didn't want to come and they knew it, for them to cut ties with him, especially when there are only I don't want to say a handful, but there aren't too many players that you would think, I care about their opinion more than whoever the next manager is going to be.
Yeah.
Even as good as Bruno is one of the best players in the league at his age. I think you have to do it. And I also think the leadership of the club, the changes that have happened, some of the changes they've made off the field to the club, it would not look very good for them to say that their handpicked guy, they got rid of him. So whether you like it or not, you better back this dude. And I almost think they have to stick with him because of the way their season has gone for their club, for their business. I know that's not a ringing endorsement, but I do think he'll do well quickly because I've now seen Eddie Howe use this tactic with better players in the game and get a result. I've seen Palace use a tactic. The formation can work in the Premier League. You need the ingredients to make the recipe.
Yeah, it's all about recruitment right now, Andy. And obviously, that's more difficult not being in the Champions League or Europe next season for United. But even in a weird way, it seems like most of the Man United fans are still on board with Amorim and don't blame him for this situation that he inherited. Is that fair? And I think it's fair to say that probably a good thing that United aren't going to be in Europe next season, so we can actually find out if he's as good of a coach as we all have heard about and think he is, to really mold that team into what he wants them to be. There's a lot of work to be done recruitment-wise, like I said, but Amorim, for me, we probably shouldn't judge him until November, December time later this year, right?
Yeah, and I mean, United have given players a lot of reasons over the years to not come to the club, just for how their careers have not progressed, but really stagnated in recent times, and the back and forth approach of one manager to the next manager, did completely different styles of players, and now they just have this collection of players that don't fit together into any system, let alone the system that's currently being put in front of them. Getting rid of Amorim would then give all the top managers in the world the exact same reason, let's not go to Manchester United. So I completely agree with Nick. They have to stick with him. I do also think, though, at some point his agent and his lawyers probably would not allow him to leave without any compensation. But that is, I think that's kind of where United are at now, though. Like that sums up the situation pretty well. Is the manager seems to be kind of, he hears the noise that's around him, and is there a club in the world where it's louder than at Manchester United? And so, yeah, they're going to have to back him this summer. I even saw some quotes from Bruno after the game that was saying, look, if the club decide that they want to cash in on me now, at this point in my career and get something in return, then I can't really do anything about that. That's their decision to make. And so I think this is going to be it's going to have to be a transformational summer for Manchester United. Not even just the squad and the coaching staff, but behind the scenes and the way that the club runs. They need to get on the same page, because it's very clear that even after a number of changes of the people that are running the club, that there's still a lot of different ideas at play. And when you've got that, good luck at the highest level of the game. You're not going to have the kind of success that United fans think that they should be.
And Nick, that success, you talked about it earlier. We've seen it with similar formations of teams that you mentioned. What is key to having that success at United in terms of recruitment? Like, what kind of type of player, or what should they be looking for this summer as they need to dramatically overhaul this squad? And like you mentioned, I'd probably only pick 2-3 players max that are there to actually be long-term parts and starting players under Amorim. So there is a lot of work to do, right? But what specifically do they need to focus and target on to help him take the club to the next stage and recover?
Well, first and foremost, you need a center forward who's going to score. Who's going to score a lot more often, who's going to be worth the price tag. I actually feel bad for Højlund, because if you look at his production before he came, he was an up-and-coming player, and you can buy that player for 35, 40 million, and everyone will give him a little bit more of a leash than if he costs 85, 90 million. And so he might be a player, honestly. He really might, but the expectations have asked so much, and I worry because the players that they need right away are the players who are a little bit later in their career, not super late, but in their prime, and want to be competing in the Champions League. Let's say you wanted Rashford to stay. He doesn't want that. Even if he loved Manchester, even if you hired his favorite coach and he loves the club, this is a guy who knows that his clock is ticking. And that's my biggest fear for them and for Amorim. I feel like 6 months from now, he could be fired, and it still could not be his fault, because I don't know if they're going to get anybody who really fits. And a full preseason with Ugarte, yes, I really like Delot. There should be a room for Kobe Manu, and Bruno is exceptional. I think he's an underrated superstar. But beyond that, there's guys that got to leave too.
Andy, is there sort of, we mentioned about the type of players Nick said there that might not want to come to United. Is it more like you need to find players who do want to be there, and maybe more experienced players from further down the Premier League that you may not usually associate with Manchester United, but have proven they can do it at lesser clubs further down the table? But you need to build that kind of squad and just get that like aura of you are a Man United player, right? And just like say, these players fit my system best. I don't care if fans on social media aren't happy that we're signing this player, but this is the type of player with his abilities that we need to sign, and just forget all the rest.
Yeah, I think you're describing making Manchester United respectable again as a club, as a team to come up against and face, and the way that people view them. Because right now Spurs won a trophy, and I know United semi-regularly will get one here and there, and so it's not about the trophy drought, but the way that the club is run, I think they are next in the pecking order for what the heck is going on over there kind of club, certainly in the Premier League. And so, yeah, I think that wouldn't be a bad approach, but the extra tax that's going to be tacked on for just to another Premier League club, let alone the fact that it's Manchester United. And so I don't exactly know how feasible that is. As Nick was talking about Højlund, I remember the conversation we had 2 years ago now almost, when he was signed. And it was 80-something million, and we couldn't believe it for a 19, 20-year-old who had one good season. And I remember saying, right player maybe, absolutely wrong time. In 2 years' time, we're going to be talking about the next one that they're going to have to bring in to replace him. And where are we now? 2 years later, talking about who's going to be the next center forward that Manchester United spend a bunch of money on. And it's just the amount of money that has been wasted by the club. It's mind-boggling. Well, we'll never know truly because we don't get all those figures. But yeah, they have to. Yeah, nobody fears Manchester United, and I don't think people really respect them anymore. And so maybe that is objective number one: is just restoring the respectability of the club.
Yeah. All right. The future of Man United is very much up in the air across the board. The one thing we can all agree on is that Ruben Amorim should stay and should be given the chance to turn this around. But everything else, from players, recruitment, where they're going as an entire club, is just, it's a mess right now. So head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com as we detail how United recover from this season, transfer targets, what Amorim's going to do, and all that stuff, because they have a lot of things to work through over the summer months at Old Trafford.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Lowe, and as we head towards the end of an exciting Premier League season, make sure you like and subscribe.
it.
That is it. Tottenham Hotspur have ended a 17-year wait for a major trophy, a 41-year wait for a European trophy. These are the scenes at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in North London. A Luke Shaw own goal has decided this Europa League final between the two teams, 16th and 17th in the Premier League. Ange Postecoglou says, I always win a trophy in my second season. The Australian has delivered a trophy in his second season. They've beaten Manchester United by a 1-0 in Bilbao. And there is a huge smile on Ange Postecoglou's face under pressure for so much of this season. But Brennan Johnson, via Luke Shaw, has delivered the decisive moment. Put it into words, Stephen Kelly.
In Ange we trust. That's it now, wasn't it? Honestly, listen, it was a scrappy, horrible game. You know, Tottenham's doing stuff that you just don't expect them to be able to do. Like literally 7-8 men behind the ball, defending corners, Van de Ven's clearance off the line is unbelievable. Vicario does well, a couple of great saves, the one for Garnacho. United pushed and pushed, but without creating any quality. But the crosses that Tottenham dealt with in the last few moments.
That was Ange with a lot of emotion there when he fist pumped and kissed, I assume, his family. His kids have been allowed to go off school and be over there. And we don't see that because he hides it very, very well, doesn't it? But what would that mean to him after everything he's gone through?
It's the biggest, I told you so in football. Is that, seriously, for a man that's been under so much pressure, and he warranted the pressure with their elite performance, 17th. If they weren't in the Europa League final, he probably wouldn't be the manager of Tottenham right now. But he's done something that other managers have not been able to produce, like the Contes and Mourinho's. The scenes are unreal.
I mean, Richarlison deserves that piggyback, doesn't he? He's worked so hard today.
But, Stephen, a lot of times over the course of the season, and sometimes rightly so, there have been the cliched questions about Tottenham and their desire and their mentality, particularly in big games.
Say it, Spursy.
Well, I didn't want to use that word, but they have been so brave. They have fought like lions tonight to get themselves over the line there.
The resilience, the determination, the bravery, defensively, Tottenham are not being the team that you scream out. When they have Van de Ven, when they have Romero, Udogie and Porro intact, they're a much better side, and that showed the organisation, the determination. Danzo comes in with an unbelievable header in the middle of the park as well, and then you throw into the players like Richarlison's work right on the right side, Brendan Johnson's getting back on. A midfield tree that picks itself because of unavailability, and you go, some of those don't even play, but the shift that Basuma and Sarr put in has been amazing. And for that man, Ange, honestly, I'm delighted for him, absolutely delighted for him, because you're one of those people that have to criticise. You're here, you can't be always a Spurs hat on, saying they're the best, saying the manager deserves a chance, because at times they've been so poor. But they've gone and won a major European trophy, and this is the first time I've been able to see Spurs win a trophy, really, that I've not, as a proper fan, and it's ecstatic.
Leanne, for every winner there is, unfortunately, a loser, and we can see the Manchester United captain, Bruno Fernandes, looks absolutely crestfallen. How would you assess and sum up Manchester United's performance firstly tonight?
Well, I think overall, we had 73% possession. Congratulations to Tottenham, has to be said, Well done, Stephen. I'm happy for you, sort of. But I'm gutted. I'm gutted. I am. I'm absolutely gutted. I am. I'm not going to lie. I'm sitting here and I'm devastated because, we played well. Tottenham, to be fair to them, parked the bus, but you've got to do what you've got to do to win. And that's all that matters. Trophy, like Lewis Nani said it before the game, all that matters is winning this game. It's a final. Anything can happen. Solanke, Richarlison worked their socks off. Van de Ven's clearance, unbelievable. Danso, unbelievable. And, my partner and her family are all Spurs fans, so I think I'll be staying somewhere else tonight.
Stephen, these scenes, you can go to your whole career and never get to experience these moments. And those players are doing it right now. 17 years of no trophy, but the whole kind of narrative around this club has just been changed.
Well, I'll tell you now, go to the 60,000 people in Tottenham Stadium and go to the fans out there now and ask them, does finishing 17th matter? And I'll tell you what they'll say. They'll say, absolutely not. They said they will. I get it, I understand it, but they won't care, because this is stuff that some of these fans have never seen this in their lifetime. Some of the fans may never see it again. It's an unbelievable achievement to win a European trophy.
Look at those scenes then for the Tottenham Hotspur supporters. Leanne, just put into words, I guess, the emotions after winning a major trophy, how those moments feel. What is in your head at that exact time?
Yeah, I mean, best days of my life winning the Champions League. Best day. I remember it like it was 17 years ago. I remember it like it was yesterday, you know, and it was the best moment in my career. And you give up a lot when you play football, you know, your family, you miss everything. And these are the moments you play for. The fans deserve this. You know, these fans, to be fair today, the fans were mixing, which I was quite surprised at. You know, a lot of Man United fans were sitting with Spurs fans, and you know, and this is what it means. Like, this is what football does. I'm not going to lie.
The Spurs do this all the time. They don't know how long they've had to wait. But Stephen, Spurs are now in the Champions League, and the whole complexity of what they do this summer, where they start next season, changes, doesn't it? And who's going to manage them?
Yeah, honestly, it's such a conundrum because look at the joy, look at the expression, look how much. Right, if you question whether the players want enough, and listen, obviously the big occasion, they might be able to turn up because they're going to win a medal at the end of it, but were they fighting for the manager? Were they still trying for the manager? And that's evidence. None of them look like they were not putting a shift in for him, or they don't want him to be there. So it's such a hard decision to make, but how do you get rid of, and listen, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, it's just how do you get rid of a man that's brought you your first silverware in so long?
Ask Claudio Ranieri at Leicester.
You have to hope, though, in a way, Stephen, that actually the decision was made before tonight. That actually it doesn't really matter, and that article which Ange Postecoglou took umbrage to about being called a hero or a clown isn't how football works. That Daniel Levy will have made an assessment over 2 seasons, not just one night in Bilbao.
Yeah, that absolutely. And it's whether or not Daniel Levy goes with our full, and it's an excuse, it is an excuse, but with our full strength team, was Ange able to get them to the best and produce top football from them? And you'd say, when he had everybody fit, that at times Tottenham were turning heads all over the world in some of the football. They were beating teams, they looked like they could beat anybody. Then they dropped off, and it was a capitulation like you've not seen. They were so poor, and the unwillingness to change styles, which was evident. But it looks like that's slightly changed a little bit now.
But that style, though, guys, I'm not like. Let's not be honest. They're sitting everyone behind the ball.
No.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like, it weren't the most. If you do that in the Premier League, you have to have a little bit of luck, taking nothing away from them. But
coming back to Ange, what I would say is he was asked about his future yesterday, and he said people leave when they win trophies. You got the sense yesterday a little bit, didn't you, that he said, "I'll work again." He was exactly. He said, "You know, I'm not worrying about that today. The chances are I will at some stage perhaps have another job," and that kind of decision.
Yeah, listen, if he does go after this, he walks away with doing something no other Tottenham has been able to do really in the Premier League. He's won a major European trophy for the club, so he will walk away going, the project I was given with the players I've had, and I was able to deliver something no one else could, so it puts him in good stead in his own mind. It's whether or not the club, and like I said, Daniel Levy would have been going through it to see, does he believe he can take them forward in the Premier League, which is, it's their bread and butter. That's where they have to perform, and they haven't. But let them enjoy this. That's what I say.
And I take your point, Leanne, about you won't play like this every week in the Premier League, that you'll be like that. But I guess what Spurs fans will say is, in some games, there's a nice middle ground between that and being down to 9 men against Chelsea and still having everyone stood on the halfway line.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it comes down to like what Stephen said about when everyone's available, did he get the best out of the team? I personally don't think so. But I don't want to rain on their parade. They've just won a major trophy. You know, that's the reality. But fair play to Ange Postecoglou. I'm not his biggest fan, I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, he's won a trophy. He said he always wins trophies in his second season. And he's done that. And fair play to him. You know, and I hope in the post-game presser he actually enjoys the moment.
Well,
you know, he just always seems very like angry and like, you know, everything's against. But you're managing in the Premier League, like that is what it's like. Managers find out on the bus on the way home they've been sacked. I'm not saying it's right, but that is modern day football.
Manchester United was an example after winning the FA Cup, wasn't he?
Yeah, but credit where it's due. You know, they've won. Like,
what of Amorim, because his tough summer just got a little bit tougher. Was it 9 points since Christmas? Where does he begin this rebuild? And it becomes much more difficult because there isn't the funding, the PSL regulations, because of not getting into the Champions League. It's going to be a hard few months for him.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Ruben Amorim's the type of guy that I feel like would walk away. You know, he's that type of guy that I think he's very honest, he's very open. I don't want him to. But at the same time, for me, like that's why I felt so nervous and that's why I feel so gutted, because in my mind, Ruben comes in, We win a trophy, which will be the Europa League. We get into the Champions League, but let's be honest, we can't do it with these players. There's no point in going into the Champions League with this squad. And then I had this idea in my head that Ruben would be the person who would deliver this trophy for Man United. We're in the Champions League. Like you say, PSR and all that kind of goes to the side because then we can bring in players because we've got the money from this competition. And now that's gone out the window. I think we're so far off of anywhere near the top 4. Do you know what I mean? We are so far off of it.
What market can he shop in summer now?
Yeah, and who wants to come?
Yeah.
Like, I'd love, like, Liam Delap to come to Man United. I think, like, he's been linked and I like him a lot. But, like, right now, like, this is really bad for Man United. Like, it is really bad because, like I said, I had this idea in my head of what was going to happen because everything's been... we said about before the game, like, they have to win this game. Man United have banked everything on this game, so did Tottenham. And whoever comes out on top, like, the questions will be asked. I can't wait to see what Ruben's got to say.
Just on what Leanne was saying there, Stephen, about recruitment and the types of players, is there not still the feeling that maybe not elite players, but 95% of players would still say it's Man United? And actually, if you're a real big player, take someone like Cunha, actually, and his attitude is, I'm going to puff my chest out, I'll be the guy to turn this around.
Yeah, I think for Cunha, it's... OK, if you're Cunha and you have Arsenal, City or Liverpool interested in Manchester United, you're picking those 3 over United. You are, at this stage in your career, you are, because you want to play for a team that can deliver trophies.
I think you even play for a Newcastle or a Villa over United.
Yeah, you want... It's because, I said before we started, there are only moments in your career where you're lucky enough to get to win trophies, and if you can go to a team that can not guarantee it but give you the best chance of achieving that, that's where you go. Are Manchester United that team anymore? They're not. Will they get back to their own Amorim? Potentially, but it's not going to be next season, so I don't think.
Do you think by not having European football, he's got a better chance, though, next season? We've seen it with some of the clubs that have rebuilt, haven't we?
Have we got a better chance of Amorim?
If there's no Thursday night, Sunday,
yeah, so
he's got a little bit more time. He talks so much about not having much time on the training pitch with these guys.
No, that's not. Sorry, though, but that's not the reason. Like, they're just not good enough. The individuals we have.
I think for a manager like that, they want to coach them. They want to be on the pitch. They want to get in their style system. In fact, he's changed the way they play, and he has to bed that in. But it's going to be horses for courses. They need those players to suit the way he plays, and at the moment, they don't really have that. But I think. I kind of feel now that I know there's a huge number of games, but I think because you spoke about the subs, the 5 subs, I think European football is much more manageable now for teams. Like I think about when I was at Fulham and we went from the start of the summer all the way through to Europa League final in a tiny squad, and you can make 3 substitutes in a game. You know, our squad was so small, and you're trying to compete on every front. That's changed. The squads are huge. The players that they have at disposal is massive. They're all internationals. You know, it's a very different football now. And I know they play a lot more football, but the players are there to be able to handle that weight, I think. So I don't think it's an excuse for a club like Manchester United dropping if they're in a European competition.
Final one to each of you then. We'll come to you, Leanne, first. We talked about recruitment and maybe money. I guess part of the importance this summer is getting rid of what they don't want. Now, that might be some players in his squad at the moment, but that also might be the likes of Anthony and Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, that if you really want to regenerate things, people above Ruben Amorim are going to have to be smart as well to get as much back as they can to try and change things.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a while, and I think this just made us go about 4 or 5 steps back, further than I expected us to be. And I think you look at those players like Anthony's gone to Real Betis and he's been amazing, but good luck to him. Some things just don't work out at certain teams because everyone's saying, oh, you know, people leave Man United and they all of a sudden push on. But yeah, I think this is going to take a while. It's going to hurt for a while, Rob. I'm not going to lie. I'm sitting here absolutely gutted that we lost this game, genuinely, because I just had this feeling that we would win this game, and not that you can predict football, but like I said, fair play to Tottenham. They did what they needed to do. The fans have gone out there. A lot of people spent a lot of money going to this game as well, like a lot of money. The fans,
and a lot
fair
of time.
play. A lot of
some
time.
people 4 days to get over there.
I saw some people going via Marrakesh, like they're trying to. And fair play to the fans, because those fans turn up every single week, every single game, even when it looks like the players are not turning up, because they were all focused on these games. Let's be honest, that Man United-Chelsea game last Friday, this first 15 minutes was better than that entire game.
This stage of the season is the reason we love it, isn't it? Because it is agony and ecstasy in equal measures in finals. But finally then, Stephen, just as those Tottenham players prepare to go and get their medal, this must be the moment where you think of all the parties you missed. You think of all the times you went to
I
training.
love that you put parties first above everything.
Speaking from experience of all the parties that I attended, and that's why I'm not in Bilbao tonight. But all those,
there were other sacrifices.
all those sacrifices, all the things that probably your parents sacrificed to get to this moment.
Yeah, honestly, even if you don't get to this moment, playing football at a professional level is worth all those sacrifices. But these are the cherry on top. These are the ones that make it really special. These are the moments that you look back in your career and you go, wow. Like I said, I've got a silver medal from one of these finals. Never got over the line to get a major one. I'm looking that goes down. There's envy, but there's so much joy in the fact that the team I support has gone on to win the European Championship after all the back of the season, after, talking so negatively so often. You have to, even though you want to be positive, you have to just say how it is. But, they haven't played great tonight, but defended it so well. And I'm just so happy. I'm so happy that they've gone and won this match.
That Matheus Cunha is this close to signing for Manchester United. What do you think?
I think it's a great signing. I think he's a brilliant player. I love watching him play. We're going to pick our team of the season tonight, but he was in my team of the halfway point of the season, so he had a great start to the season. I watched him at Man City a few weeks ago. He looked really sharp, quick, and we know how the manager at Manchester United wants to play. He likes sort of 2 number 10s in his team, and I think he'd fit perfectly.
What does that mean for the likes of, say, Alejandro Garnacho?
Well, it's certainly not good news, because I think Ahmad might play one of those other positions alongside Cunha, or maybe Bruno Fernandes at different times. And there is a lot of talk about Garnacho moving on, because I think he's come through the academy system, and we know what that means for the PSR of the club. And we also know Man United have got a few problems with that issue right now. So I think if a decent offer comes in for Garnacho, I think probably Man United will take that.
Interesting. Of course, they're in the Europa League final this week. You said on the overlap, United will win that final. Why?
I just think they're used to winning big games. I don't think there's too much to pick between the teams. We can see that from the league table. I just think of what Manchester United have done in the last few years. They've still won trophies at the end of seasons, and they're a club who are used to winning trophies. Tottenham aren't. And I think when you take that into a final, I think Man United will believe they're going to win. I'm not quite sure Tottenham will believe they can win, but it has been a season of cup upsets. We've seen that with Newcastle beating Liverpool. We've seen it with Crystal Palace beating Manchester City. So hopefully we see the same next week.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks for that. All right, so which of the two managers needs it more, this win in the Europa League final?
In terms of maybe being at the club next season, I would probably say Ange Postecoglou, but I think the man on our left here, I think needs it desperately as well, because of where it's going to put the club next season. And financially, what can he do in terms of bringing players in? I mean, there's a lot of talk. Even if Ange wins the trophy, it may not mean he's the manager next season. But I think in terms of Amorim and where he's got this project of where Manchester United are going, they need the funds from the Champions League. I don't think it's about silverware. I think it's about silverware, really, as much as anything with Tottenham. I think for Man United, it's more about where this is where it's going to take the Amorim project. Because if they obviously get the Champions League funds, it means a completely different sort of idea, and maybe players coming in the summer.
Speaking of, we've spoken about Cunha coming in. Are you surprised that, given their current plight, they're still able to attract top-class players?
No. I think Manchester United are a fantastic football club, one of the biggest in the world, and there will always be that allure of, playing at Old Trafford and the theatre of dreams and the history that the club have got. That, Man United will all have that. I play for a club at times, Liverpool, who weren't always near the top of the table, and you're still attracting good players. Maybe not as good as you could get if you were at the top of the table, that's obvious, but it's Man United.
Of the season, Manchester City have got another game still to go between now and then, and there's only a point between these teams at the moment. So here we know Liverpool qualify as champions. They'll be going through to the Champions League. Arsenal's win today means they are in the Champions League. Newcastle, because of the goal difference, they win, they're in. Same with Chelsea. Aston Villa need to win, and they need to hope that someone else drops points. Manchester City, if they win their remaining games, they're pretty much in. Nottingham Forest need to beat Chelsea and hope that someone else slips up. So 3 in, 2 out. Predict.
Well, you look at that, Chelsea are fourth at the moment. If they get beat by Nottingham Forest, they're back in the Europa Conference. Well, they'll be in the Europa if they win, but they could end up seventh in the league. Do you know what I mean? I think I'd have to go with Newcastle safe, and I only say that because Everton have got not a lot to play for. So I am going to go. My worry is Man City. I really do. The last two games, they've failed to score in the last two. They got Bournemouth coming up.
And then Fulham at Fulham.
Yeah, but Bournemouth's a dangerous game. You know, if they don't get anything out of this Bournemouth game, this is the one they need to get a point out. Because if they get a point out of this, it's back in their hands again. If they lose, it's out of their hands. And that's all you can ask for on the last day of the season, is for it to be in your hands. And at the moment, it's only in Newcastle, Chelsea's and Man City's hands as we talk.
And Bournemouth came here a few weeks ago and won. They're an excellent side, and it's not exactly going to be party time at Manchester City after losing the FA Cup yesterday. So they're going to have to create the atmosphere themselves, the players. It won't be easy. Of course, what's at stake? They'll want that top five place because they want Champions League football. But they're two tough games. Fulham won again today. They're going to want to finish as high as possible. Anything could happen. I think Chelsea got the toughest game. I think Chelsea to go to Nottingham Forest, that's really difficult one. If they can get 3 points there, and obviously you're giving yourself Champions League football, and it's going to be tight, Liz. I think anything can still happen.
You're all thinking Newcastle, definitely.
I think at home,
one
the
of
last
the
day of the
places.
season at home, you'd expect them to beat Everton because Everton got nothing to play for. They can't even move up a place
or drop.
And they've had all the celebration of Goodison Park today, and that was a big. Manchester City, 4 points from Bournemouth and Fulham. You're nervy about them, aren't you, Paul?
Yeah, I'm very.
Les?
I'm nervy.
I think they'll do it. You know, like I said, going in and it's in your own hands. And this City, we know they can produce when they want. I know things haven't been great for them this season, but they can turn up when they need to.
Bournemouth,
that's tough. Really good side.
Was the cup final a little bit of a concern for you for City? Because as Les said, we said this a lot this season, City can play brilliantly when they turn up.
Yeah.
And yet when there was silverware on the table, and they started the game really well, but they didn't deliver.
Well, if they'd have won the FA Cup this year, we'd have probably said those two games are going to take care of themselves, but it just affects your confidence a little bit. It'd be Kevin De Bruyne's last home game. He's going to want to go out on a high and produce a big performance. I still think they'll do it, but I don't think it's going to be easy by any stretch. If you look at the one fixture, the team with the easiest fixture, I would say is probably Aston Villa, because they've got Manchester United away. I mean, in terms of none of us know what's going to happen on Wednesday night. That's going to be an crazy game.
If that wishing well works, I know what's going to happen.
So lots to play for here, and I still think anything is possible. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if this is what we're in a great sort of Sundays on Sky
Sports. This is a masterclass of ducking the question, really.
Because these aren't teams that are banging forward. We're not normally normally we're talking about Manchester City last day of the season going to win the title. We're talking now about them trying to get into the top five. That just shows you how far they've dropped. So anything can still happen.
That we can make you look really silly with in a week's time.
Kelly, just look back at last year. Every season. But no, I think Manchester City getting there. You know, I think Chelsea have got the toughest fixture. They're the team that I worry about the most, just going to Nottingham Forest. And that result today has given them real belief and hope. But even then, even if they win, it still doesn't mean they're guaranteed to get into the Champions League.
So not as a 100% prediction, but you think more than likely Newcastle will beat Everton. They'll get the win that they need. It's likely that Manchester City will get the 4 points that they need, which you're less confident about. We've got 2 versus 1 in that sense. Villa with the game against Manchester United. Do you think that with Manchester United having that big Europa League final against Spurs in Bilbao in midweek, does that mean that Villa are likely to get the victory against Manchester United?
I would go without that. Even without that game, I'd go Villa to win that game. But it's what the other teams do.
Yeah.
It's not in their hands.
You think Villa win. Villa get the win that they need.
You can show me that graphic another 100 times and I'm going to change my mind 100 times. It's very, very difficult.
Don't worry, as long as we've got it clipped up, we're good.
Newcastle at home, we look at it, and what Everton haven't got a great deal to play for. That was an amazing day for them. It was their last day at Goodison Park. So they're going to go to Newcastle next week with no pressure. They're just going to be out of play. If they were to score early, first minute, anything can still happen. We all go, this is what should happen, and they're great teams. They've got the best players. Pressure does funny things to teams and players and individuals, coaches. So there's still a lot, and anxiety is going to be in those stadiums.
And if Villa win or are winning in that game, and it's a draw between Chelsea and Forest, both of those could miss out on Champions League football. Do you think that seems like a realistic possibility, that Villa win and Chelsea and Forest draw.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I think if you said before the game, that's a hard game to call. You know, I've seen it too many times over the season. You know, I've seen Man City turn up to win the league and be 2-0 down. You know,
Aston Villa,
you know, and against get beat by QPR. You know, I've seen it in Holland this year already.
Yeah,
I've seen it in
Ajax.
Holland. I see it yesterday with Strasbourg, last kick of the game. It happens. You know, you just don't turn up on the last day of the season. These are professional footballers. You know, they're playing in front of 50, 60,000. No one wants to get beat. No one wants to lie down and get embarrassed. You know, something will happen, and they'll be nervous. All these players. I like it in my hands. You know, all you can ask on the last day of the season is to be in your hands. And I think that's, you know, long as Man City get at least a draw against Fulham, it's in their hands again.
And what will
If they beat Bournemouth.
Yeah. And
Well, no, if they draw.
So if they get the draw against Bournemouth, then
if they lose to Bournemouth, it's out of their hands. You know what? They could win their last game and not go in. So they've got to at least not lose this football match.
Yeah. And what will play a big part as well is the fact now, obviously everyone's got their phones, everyone knows the score. That anxiety transmits to the players. The crowd start to get a bit more anxious because things aren't going well. You hear a massive cheer. And sometimes the information isn't always correct.
Sometimes the opposition fans like to start a rumour.
Exactly. So it's going to be a very exciting, quite a traumatic end of season for a lot of teams.
So the only one you're agreed on is Newcastle so far.
Yeah, I think
that's it, isn't it?
Yeah,
and the rest of it, I don't know. Any two from the rest of them.
Well, you were saying about you were worried about Newcastle, but you just think because Everton can't move anywhere.
Yeah, I just think because Everton can't move anywhere.
Yeah.
I just think Newcastle and Newcastle are good at home. They're decent at home. Do you know what I mean? You know, they're a good football team and. You know, if they play like they did in the first half today, I think that'll be enough.
Yeah. Europa League final then. Quick word. Spurs against Manchester United. If you think that was hard to predict, talk to me about two teams who, on paper, by any metric, have had poor seasons.
I think you've been kind with the word poor.
They're right down only just above the relegation places of teams who've had desperately poor seasons, which is why they're... And the winner of that game... Either Tottenham or Manchester United, after those seasons in the league, will be playing Champions League football next season. Who is it going to be?
I think Man United.
Because
you don't have Tottenham.
I think Kulusevski's a massive miss.
I agree.
I think if Kulusevski's playing, I'm probably going with Tottenham, but I think he's by far their best player, and I think it'll be a big miss. And I just think Man United have that little bit extra than they do, in my opinion. But it could go anyway.
Kulusevski, Maddison, Bergvall are really important players. So you'll probably end up with a midfield three of Bentancur, Sarr and Bissouma. So in terms of someone that's going to have that little bit of extra quality, it's going to be more difficult. But with Son, Solanke, they can win this game. Of course, we can talk about. And Roy Keane made a very valid point. I totally get it that Manchester United's history can carry you through, but there isn't anything when you watch Manchester United to work on that basis and go, because that's going to change anything. It's going to be anything can happen. It's going to be one of the great pillar fights.
And even when they've had difficult seasons, Manchester United have managed to come home with a piece of silverware. But Les, are you Team Spurs for this one?
Of course, all day long. I've had this all day, like nothing else. Like, I'm really desperate for them not to win it.
You said you're buying a Bruno shirt.
I'm going sports shop.
Make the case briefly for Tottenham.
No, I just think they've been poor in the league this season, but I think in this competition they've turned up and they've been at their best when they have turned up. So I think with Bissouma and start of the season and Bentancur, they were good in that midfield. So I'm course going for Spurs.
Tottenham have got one out. They beat them. They've beaten them the last 3 times, haven't they?
Yeah, and they have got a big performance.
Yeah, they've got good. Yeah.
Because at the start of the season, he said, I always win titles in my second season. And it's kind of been proven in South Melbourne, Brisbane, Raw, Australia, Marinos and Celtic. He's always managed to win at least one title in his second year. And he could actually do that after tonight because it's his second year here at Tottenham.
He always wins trophies in his second season. Up until now, that's absolutely spot on.
And Nigel, I feel like Ange Postecoglou is always one that we like to listen to in press conferences because we never really know what he's going to say. What should we really make of what he said ahead of this final tonight?
Ange is very raw, authentic, and sometimes a bit too emotional. And I think with going to England, people don't realise what it's like when you manage certain clubs in England and the media and the press and what comes with it. I feel that the press have kind of got the better of him now. I don't think he expected the media to be so hard and put him under the microscope for so long in the season, and he's got to answer to certain things. And sometimes saying less is saying more. Sometimes you just don't have to answer the question, but he's just so authentic and true to who he is and his personality, and that's what's got him in trouble. And the media just keep on going and going. Someone has experienced that.
Win or lose, I'd be more surprised if he stays at Spurs than if he leaves Spurs at this point, right?
I think that, for me, I feel that he knows the writing's on the wall. If you listen to his latest press conferences, I feel that he knows that his time at Tottenham is done, again, with what he said. And the reality of it is the performances haven't been good enough. Right. Domestically, they have not been good enough in the league, and there is a reason why they are where they are in the table in the Premier League. And also, I'll probably say that he has created a little friction between himself and the fan base.
That's
one thing that you can't do.
At the top of the list, I would think.
That is one thing you can never do as a Premier League manager, create that rift. If you are winning, you could create as much rift as you want because you're winning, they can't deny that. But when you're sitting just above the relegation zone and that rift was created, and the one game that stands out to my mind, I believe, was against Chelsea, with the substitution changes that he made and then copying his ear to the fans, and then obviously fans there. So I think that is the biggest problem for him, and that's the biggest thing that you'll have to struggle to win back the fans.
I think we saw the first schism between Ange and the fan base at the end of last season, when they had to beat Manchester City, and that would mean Arsenal would take the title. And Spurs fans, I think there was a contingent that would have rather lost that game, and that's when Ange's narrative started shifting a little bit against Spurs fans.
Yeah, they wanted,
and if there's anybody
they wanted to lose again.
They wanted to lose it.
So that
They wanted to lose that game, so Arsenal, correct.
Was,
You're right. Sorry, excuse me. That was a split, I think, the first initial one, and it's kind of only gotten worse. Then him doing that to the crowd on a goal that they got called back by VAR. It's just not a good look at this point.
But for right now, we're going to look ahead at what we think the projected lineups will be. Nigel, talk to us about this Manchester United team and who we can really trust in the goal scorers, in the goalkeeper. Talk to us about what we're seeing here.
Well, we'll talk about Onana, the goalkeeper. He's had a poor season for Manchester United standards. Confidence for me is still 50-50 with Onana. So you know that you might have opportunities if you're Tottenham, if you're taking long-range shots and just trying to make him uncomfortable. Defensively, this is what they're going to go with, and I don't believe that they've still got it right. You've got Yoro, Maguire, who's had a resurgence really in what he's had to go and endure at Manchester United. Lindelof, still very questionable defensively. They will still concede goals, and they will still look all over the place. They still don't have that real solidarity, that they look like a solid defensive unit and system, and everyone knows what they're doing. I would say Casemiro is a player that people need to pay attention to. He really has come back strong. Dealt with a lot of criticism of not performing, not being able to get around. He's showing us signs of the old school Casemiro that we saw at Real Madrid with his performances. He has gone underneath the radar. I would say for me, Dalot is the one you got to keep an eye on. This is how we've got it set up here, but really and truly, Fernandes will be more tucked in, Dalot will be more tucked in, under Højlund. Outlet is Mazraoui and Dorgu. They are the outlet. That is how Amorim likes to play. His outlets are the wide players to come in there, getting crosses in the box, opposite winger coming in, and at times what you will find is, because these guys will be tucked in, they'll be the ones that make these runs to stretch the pitch and create things for Manchester United.
Dalot's also been training with the team, so perhaps Mazraoui could play for Dorgu on the left, or that's just a nice little card that he has up his sleeve off the bench, Diogo Dalot.
Diogo Dalot definitely has come back as well, so maybe he might come in for Mazraoui. They've got options at Højlund, obviously being a focal point and the target of that team, but their strength definitely does comes from their wing-backs. This is what Amorim likes to play. It's the wingers, they're the outlet, they're the ones that will create things for Manchester United.
Nico, touching on this Tottenham team, when these two teams came up against each other last in the Premier League, Tottenham won 1-0, but how is this side different to what we were seeing in February?
Well, I think there's 6 players at least that aren't going to start in this final, and it's a lot due to injury, really. I mean, Denso, Davies, Bergvall, Madison, Kulusevski, tells, that's basically your entire team. You got Porro, you got Spence, you got Bentancur, and Son's back. But this is a wildly different team. For the longest time, I think the spine defensively was hurt. I mean, you talk about your center backs, you have Van de Ven and Romero back. They were either one was injured, the other one was injured. They haven't played together until maybe a month back. consistently. So when you've got them in your team, it's a completely different look. It's a completely different feel. You can start taking the risks that Ange wants to take. And honestly, he's got nothing to lose at this point, because win or lose, it definitely feels like he's out. So my feeling, my intuition tells me that he's going to want to go out swinging. You're thin in the midfield. Sarr is only just coming back, right? So I imagine maybe you don't have that many guys that you can fill in these spots. So if Sarr's out, who are you going to put there? Archie Gray, is Porro gonna pop into the midfield? I'm not sure at this point. But the three up top are the ones that I feel comfortable in. They're gonna have an incredible game from a work rate perspective.
Johnson and Son are the key weapons when it comes to Tottenham. They, for me, with the pace to get in behind and expose these areas that the wing-backs will leave for Manchester United, that's going to be key. They've got pace, they've got quality, they've got an eye for a goal and can make a pass. I think Son's a big bonus back. The one thing we haven't spoken about is what could be a big problem is set pieces. I think Manchester United are the better equipped side when it comes to set pieces to get wins in set pieces. And it's this guy here, Harry Maguire, could cause some serious problems if Manchester United have some real set pieces set where he can be the main guy, because Tottenham are not great at defending set pieces. They haven't been. That can be a key area where Manchester United can look to exploit.
An exciting night happening in Bilbao, because the Europa League final will be taking place, and you can watch it on Paramount Plus, and starting at 2 p.m. and the kickoff is at 3 p.m. So the European trophy is up for grabs in the all-English final. Spurs have a chance to win their first European trophy since 1974, but Manchester United will look to win their second Europa League title of the last decade. Like I said, coverage begins on Paramount Plus at 2 p.m. Eastern, with kickoff at 3 p.m.
You're always winning your second season, mate. How does that feel? Come on, I've been backing you all season. I love your football. You've had your injuries, young players, but you did it tonight.
Yeah, I can't say the same for everyone on the panel. And
can you put into words how you're feeling?
Look, it's just, I don't know. I can't put it into words, to be honest. I know what it means to the football club. I know what it means to supporters. And look, it's no secret we've had a tough year, but I've just had this thing inside me, you know, kind of the back half of the year of just one focus, one target. I just felt that, you know, this was it. And to achieve it today, like I said, I know what it means to the club. You know, it's had the tag of sort of a nearly team for a long time. And the only way you break that is by winning things. And we did that today.
And you've had a long sort of managerial career in different countries, different clubs. How tough has it been for you this season, having to deal with sort of, you know, the defeat and sort of every press conference after the game, and then you've got to build up to the next game? And obviously you've had lots of games because obviously of the Europa League run that you've been on. Has it been tough for you as a manager individually?
Look, it's been the toughest couple of years I've had in my career, and I knew it going into it, because I knew what I was going into. You know, it's this football club's had world-class managers and a lot better credential than I am, and haven't been able to get there. So I knew I had a massive challenge in front of me this year. Obviously, added stress of, you know, the injury situation we had and trying to navigate that. Jamie, like I said, I've just had this laser focus on, you know what, I still believe we could win something this year. We went deep into the Carabao Cup. Once we got knocked out of that, my focus just became Europe, and it's cost us. It's cost us in the league, and that's down to me. But I just had a feeling inside me that this was achievable this year, and you know, I'm thankful it all worked out.
And you've spoken a lot about the fact that what a trophy could do for this club, not just this team, but almost the club. Because you've felt for a long time almost like the club's looked down on, and you have that terminology of Spursy. What do you think this trophy can actually do, not just for you and this team, but actually the club going forward in the future for, you know, years to come?
Well, I'm really hoping that it does. It changes the way the club sees itself more than anything else. I mean, externally, you know, you can't really, you know, sort of adjust whatever people think about you, but how you feel about yourself is really important. And as a football club, you know, we've just been close so many times, and I could feel the nervousness every time, you know, in Europe. Every time we got close to something, there was always this, what if it's another year where we miss out? So we've done it now, so that's the monkey off the back. So now the club can sort of stand tall, and hopefully it does. You know, it looks at itself a bit differently and tries to challenge for more trophies. You've won one now, so there's nothing stopping you winning again.
Hi, Ange. Roy Keane here. I just want to say, Ange, well done. Absolutely fantastic. Brilliant performance.
Thanks,
was it part of your tactic with so long to go just to sit back in and shut up shop, really? Did you think one goal would be enough? Did you actually believe that?
Yeah, I thought we could, Roy. We've been really disciplined in Europe away from home. I mean, I think we kept a clean sheet at Frankfurt. We kept a clean sheet at Bodo away from home, and very similar performances. And this group's, you know, got that resilience in them now. Look, it makes a difference when I've got Van der Ven, Romero, Udogie, Vicario, you know, and then, you know, Bissouma and obviously Pyro right back with Bissouma and Bentancur. It's a real solid sort of foundation for us, and I just felt with United, if we got ahead, then I thought they'd find it really hard to break us down, and we'd be a threat on the counter-attack. We weren't as great in transition as I wanted to be, but, you know, they had some chances, but I just felt we were strong and resilient enough to keep them out.
And one more from Big Meeks himself. I know this is not the Champions League show, this is Europa League, but I would like to ask you, who's your favourite on the show before you go?
Well, it's not me.
Might not be Thierry either.
I'm the only Spurs fan here, Ange, by the way. I'm the only Spurs fan.
He's come clean now.
Hey, we were all Spurs fans tonight.
Yeah, no, you're definitely a declared Spurs fan. We got you in our camp, Roy. Yeah, look, I love what I do. I'm so blessed to be able to, you know, do what I love every day, and I've got beautiful people around me and my family. And so even in the hardest of days, I still think, you know, I had to pinch myself today, to be honest. I got mates who come from Australia, and part of me was thinking I should be in the stand with them, just enjoying the spectacle, you know. It's difficult for me to comprehend, but, you know, we're here now, we've won it, and, you know, it's something in my old age I can reflect on.
Well, Anne, sorry to interject, but I asked about me, not you.
Sorry, mate. Sorry. Sorry, Miko. You've been in my camp all along. I love you, mate. I think Joe Hart's probably influenced you.
Ange, congratulations. Well done. Go celebrate.
Thank you, guys. I will.
Thank you.
Your name is going to be in the walls of White Hart Lane.
Yeah, I mean, I can't describe the feeling right now, but I don't care if anyone scored. I don't care if the kit man scored, and we just needed to win the final. And yeah, to get the job done today is such a special feeling.
You not only won, you changed history. You feel that way?
Yeah, I think so. We just needed to win a trophy. This club deserves trophies. It's such a good club. Everything's there for us. And although in the league it hasn't been good enough, we knew this was a massive opportunity from day one. First game, Karabag. We got told that this competition is special. And I think you'll see now how special it is to us.
Is it your goal, by the way?
I don't know, and I do not care one bit. You can give it to me, you can give it to whoever the defender was, I don't care one bit.
How often you dreamt this?
It's been tough to dream it, because the last 2 days I've just had a real, I wouldn't say nervous because I was confident, but like, I haven't been able to think about the game too much. I just wanted to get out there and yeah, just enjoy, and now we finally can enjoy.
What does it mean, this title for you?
First title. And first title, you will never forget that. The first step is always hardest, but when you make the first step, it's one of the biggest ones. So I'm very happy, very, very lucky that I have such a group of the squad with me. And yeah, what can I say? Oh.
What do you think when you look around to the supporters?
So grateful, so grateful. Football is because of them. So I really appreciate it and I love them.
In the end, it's a good season with this qualification for the Champions League and this trophy?
Yeah, I mean, the trophy is more important than our Champions League at the moment. But look, we are next year Champions League, which is that we are looking after. And then look, next season is another season. Let's celebrate today.
Mickey, just sum up for us how you feel right now.
Unbelievable.
What does it mean to you, to these Tottenham fans who've waited 17 years for this?
Yeah, if you look at the fans, they kept pushing us the whole season. It was the season was so difficult, and we kept pushing and pushing, and we were playing so strong in Europa every time, and everybody was doubting us. But if you see like the team we kept together, and what can I say? It's just unbelievable.
You know, sometimes we talk about the goal scorers being the match winners, but tell me about that clearance with about 25 minutes to go. It looked like you'd broken your back.
I haven't watched it back yet, but I can tell you the ground over there is not really soft, but my back was, yeah. But what I say, it was all worth it. Look around, so everybody's going to celebrate now, and that's it.
Whatever system, he wouldn't have mattered.
Madison! How you doing, Jamesy boy?
You got changed.
I had to get a medal.
James has literally done, what's it called, the John Terry?
The John Terry
It's called the James Madison now.
This time, but...
Have you got your shin pads on, James?
No,
not quite.
Boots,
to be fair, I wasn't going to do any interviews, but then I heard it was with Roy Keane. So
Come on, Roy. It's on you.
Hey, Madison, can you do the downside, please? Do it for us, will you?
Oh, will I? With pleasure, Michael. With pleasure. Roy Keane, that's for you, sir.
Hey,
I've always said he's a good player. I always said he's a good player, but he needs to be more consistent. Simple as that. And he played well tonight.
The reason why we were here tonight, Roy.
Don't worry, I know you played your part. Well done, don't worry.
Nah, I'm only messing. Nah, I came down to have a word. He just pulled me, but I did like it, man. Like,
well done.
James,
so
James,
cool,
can I just ask
I heard you a hit.
what is this for? You know, you've joined Tottenham. You want to win trophies, but you're always sort of talked about as a club who they don't win, they can't get over the line. I mean, what's that going to mean to sort of the players right now? What's the feeling being leading up to this game and almost that pressure on you to prove so many people wrong?
Well, that's what it is, Carrot, to be fair. And, like, all joking aside, like, people like yourself and Roy, who go quite heavy in the media about putting us down and that, you've got to use that, do you know what I mean? And when I joined Tottenham, and you know what it's like, everyone just goes, he's retired from winning any trophies now and all this. And I said to my dad and I said to my best mate, I was like, I'm going to lift silverware for Tottenham. And listen, I know it sounds like I'm not trying to make this mad story, but I fully believe that I could come and we could create something that could. And just building up, you know what it's like, it gets bigger. We're against United, who have been a dominant force over the years in Europe and domestically. Even in the last few years when they haven't been great, they've still managed to pick up trophies, and we knew that would be a bit of the chat going into it. But I sensed the focus and I sensed the togetherness that, especially with this year as well, with Palace winning the FA Cup and a lot of them outsiders kind of winning, I sensed it could be something special. And
so you're calling yourself outsiders then?
No, but I'm just saying Palace were outsiders and won, and then Harry Kane went and won his first title, and I think Bologna won in the Italia Cup against Milan, and I just had this feeling, you know, and
James,
yeah, and especially with the gaffer, with what he said at the start of the season as well, it made sense, didn't it?
James, I mean, it's just interesting when you say when people sort of give you criticism, and one of the reasons why we do give not just your Tottenham team criticism, the club over the last few years, is that you've lost 7 semi-finals since you last won a trophy. You've lost 4 finals, so I think the criticism comes from not getting across the line. But how does that criticism affect you or the dressing room when you hear the likes of, you know, us on the panel or other people? Do you use it? Does it affect players now? Because we probably didn't have it in the social media world as much as players have it now.
Yeah, well, the social media word, Cara, heightens everything times 100, doesn't it? But when you talk about them records and that, a lot of the players haven't been here for that long, that record, so it's almost like an incentive to be the group that can change that. Do you know what I mean? And the gaffer, to be fair to him, since he come in, has always said, he pointed at in our dressing room at the Spurs ground. They've got all the walls of all the teams at Spurs who have won trophies, and they're all black and white and they're all old. And he's always made a thing about saying that get on that wall. It's about us getting on that wall. Yeah, like you think of Harry Kane, who's the best player in the club's history, and he's not on the wall, unfortunately. And being the group that can change that, and we have now. So I can smile, I can enjoy, I can have a beer tonight and listen to you lot.
James, can you show us that medal, please? Can you bring it closer to the camera?
I'll get nice and close for you, Mike.
Yes, of course you will.
Give it a kiss.
Look at that.
Give it a kiss.
Absolutely fantastic. but James, before you go, one last question. You know, it's a different team tonight, not the Champions League. This is a Europa League team. I just want to ask you, who's your favourite on the show?
Roy's not a regular, is he?
Bit like you at Spurs.
Turned up in all the big ones, Cara. You go and check your stats.
Brilliant!
Micah, you're my favourite, mate. All right. After
Yes!
that comment, you're my favourite, Micah. All right.
Congratulations!
Cheers, thank you.
Congratulations!
Him as one of the greatest midfielders ever. Kevin De Bruyne making his final appearance at the Etihad tonight as a Manchester City player. So let's get the words from the Manchester City legend.
Kevin, can you try and put into words what this football club and what this stadium means to you?
Manchester is home. Manchester is where these little kids are born. I came here with my wife Michelle to stay for a long time. Didn't expect to be here 10 years to do what we have done as a club, supporters, my teammates. We've won everything. We made the city, the club bigger, and now they're going to take over.
Are you proud not only of the legacy that you're leaving behind in terms of trophies, but in the way that you have played the game?
I wanted to play with creativity. I wanted to play with passion. I wanted to enjoy football, and I hoped and I think everybody enjoyed it. And this. Everybody has pushed me so hard from inside and outside the club to be the best version of myself. And these guys, everybody we see on the screen, and these guys in front of me, they've made me so much better than I was before. And it's been an absolute honor to play with these guys. I've made so many friends for life, and you know, we all together. We'll be back for sure soon, whenever.
Kevin, we've enjoyed it and more. You've been the heartbeat of this team. We thank you endlessly. How do you hope these fans here remember you?
No, like I said, with joy. You know, this team tries to entertain people and win. This team works incredible hard, everybody behind the scenes and on the pitch. And this team want to win. They will win in the future with me or without me. And I know everybody in the city and these supporters will be behind the team like they've done with me in the last 10 years. And this team will have more success, that's for sure.
When you arrived here, we knew you were an unbelievable talent. Now you're leaving as a genuine legend. Did you ever dream of how well it would go?
You just want to do well and win, and then when you win, you want to win more, and you want to push the city. And you know, we have had 5-6 parades. That's been incredible. You know, to witness everything that goes around in the city, and with all the moments with these teammates, there's too many to count. It's been an absolute pleasure.
What have the fans meant to you throughout those nearly 10 years, during the lows and during the highs? What have the fans meant?
Oh, they've been so welcome from the beginning, and then I don't know how to explain it, to have almost a full stadium. You know, supporting my family and me says everything. Who can have 50,000 people just waiting for you to say goodbye? You know, it's undescribable, and thank you very much.
Chairman, but the club will be building a statue of you outside the Etihad Stadium. How does it feel to have that honour?
You know, it means I will always be part of this club, and I've always represent a small piece of that. And you know, whenever I come back with these guys and with family and friends, I will able to, yeah, see myself standing around the stadium. So I'll always be it.
Not enough
Now, we
words
have some
can be said about Kevin De Bruyne
that we would
and
like
how
to
much
give
he
you.
has given to this
So
club.
we'd like to invite in, because from one king to another, representing the community, please welcome
He'll be getting an award very shortly, Tim. You look at what he's contributed: 108 goals, 170 assists, 419 appearances in all competitions for City. How do you describe the Kevin De Bruyne era at this club?
Well, I mean, you'd be shocked if City, over the course of the next decade, are able to achieve what they've achieved. I mean, he is a superstar on the pitch, a humble human being, genuine as they come. Most importantly for this football club, he's a winner. And when you talk about the statue, which is such an incredible gesture by the football club, he said himself, "I will be a part of this forever," and he's earned that right.
Amazing to have his family there as well, Musty, yeah. And who knows what the future looks like for Kevin De Bruyne, but how will you remember his time here and the biggest difference that he made?
Well, the biggest thing with him, for me, is the special qualities that he has, and we don't see that very often. You know, both Tim and I played a long time in the Premier League, been watching it forevermore, we've been analysing it now for 12 years, and I'm going to miss attempting to break down his brilliance and to analysing it and trying to, you know, kind of explain how difficult it is to do some of these things. We ran a few clips of him earlier on, and some of those crosses, some of those strikes, and some of the accuracy, that's just special talent, and there's not many players that can do that. So the statue thing is going to be great. He's a classy guy, and yeah, we're going to miss him.
Yeah, Manchester City wave goodbye to a true legend.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Lowe, and as we head towards the end of an exciting Premier League season, make sure you like and subscribe on the...
What are the main reasons?
Just not clinical enough, to be honest, Ted. Arsenal created a lot of chances, especially early on the first 7 minutes. Declan Rice had a header that went inches. You know, he out-jumped Marquinhos. Great header, but just went wide of the post. Then Martinelli had a chance. Donnarumma made a good save. Saka had a chance right at the end. And I think it's a case of the same old story for Arsenal, really. Just not being clinical enough in the final third. And ultimately, when you play at the highest level, that will cost you, and it has tonight.
Luis Enrique's been lauded around the world. What could Arteta have done better tonight, do you think?
I don't think Arsenal could have done anything better than what they've done. They've gave everything. They're out on their feet. They kept trying. They kept trying to create. They was aggressive. The work rate was really good. The game plan was good. But again, you just fall short because Arsenal wasn't clinical enough. And that's what it's come down to. PSG, they rode the storm. They were organised. They were difficult to break down, but then they broke really fast. And when they did get their chances, they were clinical. Hakimi scored a fantastic goal. Fabio Ruiz, it was a great shot from the edge of the box. It did take a big deflection though, but they was more clinical overall.
Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang left Arsenal in February 2022, more than 3 years ago. Why have they not replaced him with an adequate goal scorer?
I mean, that's a question you're going to have to ask Mikel Arteta. But I mean, Mikel Arteta was at Man City with Guardiola. Guardiola did play a few seasons without a number 9, a natural number 9. There was a lot of players that played in that position. Foden played there, Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne. Players played that. Those kind of players played there. And I feel like with Mikel Arteta, maybe he's tried to do that and build the squad in areas that he thought was weaker. But now, I feel like Mikel Arteta and Arsenal are at the point where they just need to say, okay, we're going to buy number 9. We really mean business, whoever it may be. The most important signing this summer is a number 9.
Who would you want? Seshko's been linked, RB Leipzig player, Gyökeres from Sporting.
I mean, ideally, in my opinion right now, the best overall striker in the world is Isak. And I say that because of his youth. He's got really good pace. He holds up the ball, he can beat players, he's very clinical, his movement's very good. Someone like him would be fantastic. But there are going to be a lot of teams that want him. There's been talks that Real Madrid might want him. Liverpool are looking for a number 9. Darwin Núñez might be leaving. So it's going to be a big summer of business for Arsenal. He would be the best one, in my opinion. But there are other strikers out there that could come and do a job. Delap, he could maybe be a good option. I believe he's between 30 and 40 million pounds. Very good young player. But ultimately, whoever comes in, they need to hit the ground running and be an absolute goal-scoring machine for Arsenal, because that's where Arsenal fall short.
5 seasons without a trophy now since the FA Cup in 2020 for Mikel Arteta. How sure are you that he is the manager to lead Arsenal?
I hate this question, to be honest, because I don't want to say that Arteta should get the sack. I wouldn't wish that upon nobody, but I feel like things will have to change if this continues. You can't hide away from the fact that Mikel Arteta has spent the better part of £700 million, which is an awful lot of money, and to then say you don't have a recognisable number 9.
Or any goal scorers really, the team, apart from Saka, are there?
And that's the problem. I feel like Arsenal is a bit lopsided. Everyone knows the ball goes out to Saka, even tonight's game. Kvaratskhelia and Mendes were doubling up really well on Saka. Yes, he did score, but in them wide areas, it was difficult for him to get on the ball. And even though Martinelli does do well and he does his part, he works really hard, he makes some good runs in behind, especially against teams that play with the high line, there just seems to be a lopsided. And I feel like Arsenal need to make some signings to make the squad stronger, but to not have to rely on Saka so much in these big games.
How confident are you that Arsenal will win a trophy next season?
You're really putting me on the spot.
No, but this is what the Arsenal fans, because they're looking at Manchester United, aren't they? Saying that's a chaotic team that's won the League Cup, FA Cup, potentially the Europa League in 3 seasons, whereas Arsenal all the plaudits, but nothing.
Very, very true. I think next year is going to be a much more competitive Premier League, I believe. Man City are going to go and sign players, Liverpool are going to go and sign, Chelsea are going to build again, Newcastle have the money to go and spend on players. I think it's going to be very, very competitive. It's going to be an interesting summer. But I believe Arsenal, they're not far away, let's put it that way. I think maybe 2-3 players away from really putting on a strong title challenge and going to win the domestic cups and really competing in the Champions League.
More because, of course, Ruben Amorim also coming under the spotlight. What did you make of his tactics and how his side went about things last night?
Shocking, Joe. I thought they were terrible. They were so bad. And in the end, Tottenham just decided to defend. It was one of the worst. I think it is actually probably the worst Manchester United final performance I've ever seen. They were absolutely awful. None of them had anything about them. The manager, inept of ideas, didn't know how to change it, didn't know how to affect the game, made subs too late, and not one player on that pitch. Maybe Maguire done okay, Diallo in the first half done all right. But come on, a European final and you're putting a performance like that at Manchester United. Some of these players are on 350 grand a week. Unbelievable, the performance they put in.
Yeah, because, from a player's perspective, how much responsibility do they have to take for simply just not turning up in a final?
Yeah. Look, obviously it's on the players as well. But if you're playing in a system that don't work, and you're playing in a system that just doesn't work for this team, Bruno Fernandes has been their only decent player this season, really. Played him centre midfield. So he's having to run around everywhere. That's not where you want Bruno Fernandes. You want Bruno Fernandes at the high end of the pitch, getting in pockets and making key passes. Bruno Fernandes, he's getting the ball off the keeper. He's getting the ball off the back four. You don't want to do that. That's not his game. I just couldn't believe what I was watching. When I see Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro in midfield, I'm thinking, what a touch. Because they've just completely stifled Bruno Fernandes' game. He is not a centre midfield player. Never been a centre midfield player. He's a good player, can play anywhere. He's a great player when you play him in the right position. Play him as a number 10, that's where he affects the game. I couldn't believe what they were doing, Man United, and they were absolutely shocking all over the park. Every single one of them should have been ashamed of themselves of the performance they put in. It was terrible.
And I mean, we've heard from Amorim saying he would walk away if the club didn't want him.
He should walk.
Yeah, well,
he should walk.
He does seem to have the backing of the board, though. So what would it take for that to change, given their league position, given the fact they've just lost in this final?
Well, I ain't going to take long. We'll see what happens in pre-season. The only saving grace that he's got is he didn't want the job until the end of the season. He wanted to come in now because he knew what he had to deal with. He knew he has a system. He's very bullish. I'm staying with this. I'll stick with it. They ain't got the players to play that system. I don't think they're ever going to have the players to play that system. I don't think it works at a massive football club like Man United, that formation. I don't. And listen, he should walk because he ain't the right man for the job. He's not the right man for the job. And the performances he's put in since he's come there have been shocking. He nearly saved their season by crawling their way to a Europa League final. But then you put in that performance in a Europa League final, you've got to look at it as a manager and go, this is nowhere near good enough. The players are not obviously, they can't take on board what I want to do. He should walk, but no one walks anymore because there's too much money on offer. So he's not going to walk, and at pride from himself, he'll believe that he can try and turn it around. I don't see any positives.
Does he deserve a window to see if he can bring in some players, turn things around?
Who are they going to bring in? Who's going to join Man United? They're 16th in the table. They've got no European football. And everyone knows that the club is cost-cutting, the wages, they're getting rid of everyone. Jim Ratcliffe's just like a fire sale. Everyone's up for sale. Who actually is going to want to join Man United and really take that club? All right, Cunha is a really good player. I like him. You're getting him from Wolves. I'm talking about players who are going to make a massive difference. You need 6 or 7, not 1 or 2. That football club is in a disarray. So that's the problem I've got. You give them a window. Are they really going to change? There's more problems there at Man United than just what's on the football pitch. There's so many things wrong there.
Yeah, OK, finally, Jamie, we saw some pretty exuberant celebrations from yourself on social media. Rumours around that you've pulled a muscle. Any truth that you're out for tonight's show?
I'm done with neck, Joe. I'm really struggling. I pulled my neck. I can't move. I've got to move. I'm moving like an old man. I'm going to try and make the parade tomorrow. But I tell you what, it was worth every moment. I can't believe I got my top off on camera. It's a ridiculous movement from me, but it is what it is. Spurs are back. We're in the Champions League, and Arsenal, they can stick it to you.
Jamie, rest up. Hope that neck gets better. Enjoy the celebrations. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
To the top of the table, remember, just Napoli and Inter have completed their fixtures ahead of this weekend. The rest of the Italian teams will compete. However, you got to say well done to Napoli. They have won the title by scoring only 59 goals. Michael Hood, congratulations to Napoli. It wasn't necessarily the most pleasing on the eye season, unless you're a Scottish fan and a big fan of McTominay. But Napoli somehow found a way to get the job done. How did they get it done?
Look, I've always been a believer that this Napoli side, yes, we can talk about what they did when they won the Scudetto a couple seasons ago. Yes, Kvaratskhelia, Victor Osimhen. But the ingredient for success, Ian, was goals from midfield. You got to take the heat off your leading goal scorer and your striker at the time, in Romelu Lukaku. But now you have a more dynamic team, a more goal-scoring team, and a team that's bought in, more discipline. But Antonio Conte is a secret sauce.
Yeah, he's done a fabulous job, but so is this guy right here. Scott McTominay, outstanding, and also nominated and therefore awarded the MVP of Serie A this campaign. Would you agree with that decision to give him the MVP? Obviously very impactful for what he did do this season in a Napoli jersey, especially after coming off the back of disappointment at Manchester United. He's pretty much turned the season around and also scored some incredibly popular goals for Napoli this season.
He's turned his career around, right? This is a guy that was outcast, seen as an outcast from Old Trafford, and had question marks about how he would do. He came in with the right manager at the right time. Going down the stretch where the MVP conversation really came under his grasp, you go down the stretch, you look at the goal-scoring form. This Napoli side don't win the Scudetto without Scott McTominay. I mean, we see it, the 12 goals on the season. I mean, the guy's a force to be reckoned with, but this is a guy that willed his team forward.
I mentioned vital goals. Okay, in addition to be obviously nominated at MVP, he scored the most goals in 0-0 situations. 8 goals he has scored to give Napoli the lead. What do you think it has been for, if we just focus on Scott McTominay and the season he has had, obviously helping Napoli to Scudetto, you have to say there's been something that Conte has done to McTominay, to that locker room, to maybe get the best out of his players. So what has he done to Scott McTominay?
I never thought Scott McTominay was a defensive midfielder. Remember watching him at Manchester United with Erik ten Hag, tried to play him deeper, and then he got something out of him last season when he was playing further forward. With Scotland, where does he play? Closer to the goal. Where Antonio Conte got it right is he's got power in his legs, and there's not many Serie A midfielders, when you think of the top teams, that can cope with the mobility from midfield. He's got a knack for scoring goals and big goals. Even going back to last season, the FA Cup run-up. Manchester United, he scores against Coventry, he scores against Liverpool, right? Everyone remembers some of the goals that were scored, but he was such a catalyst in the FA Cup final win. And this man right here, Antonio Conte, what he's been able to do, restore confidence in him and so many players, especially in midfield, it's incredible.
5 titles as a player in Serie A, now 5 titles as a manager in Serie A. I mean, he took on this job. It's an opportunity for him to obviously get back involved in Italian football. Many people thought he was crazy going to this Napoli side. He was dealt some very difficult cards. Obviously, Osimhen deciding to leave and go play his football elsewhere on loan in Turkey. And then you lose Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, your most important player in the mid-season, and yet he still managed to win an Italian title. What did he do right here, Conte, that impressed you to manage to get him over the line?
I think it's a blend of what makes Italian football great, right? The defensive side of things, Napoli, they were defensive stalwarts this season, but I thought he got it right in terms of his recruitment. Some of the players that he brought in that have so much to prove. We saw him do this at Chelsea when he came in, and he's got a knack, not just for winning Scudettos. You look at what he's done to each club. You go from Juventus, they were 7th before he got there, took him to the summit. You go to Chelsea, they were 10th. This Napoli side, yet again, 10th. This guy is not just a serial winner. This guy is a culture and trend setter. He wins everywhere he goes, and he gets buy-in from everyone.
Yeah, he just knows how to get it done, right? He's just that type of manager who goes to a football club and tries to make an impact. 59 goals scored, 27 goals against. There's been a number of players. Big Rom, obviously 14 goals domestically. It's the best return he's had at a domestic season since 21 when he was playing for Inter. But we've got to give some love to Anguissa as well in midfield. There's been a number of players who have really stood out. Not many people will talk about Anguissa and the job that he did do because of McTominay in that midfield area, but he was immense this season.
Yeah, the thing I've always loved about Dzumbo Anguissa, when you watch him play for Cameroon, he gets further forward and he gets you goals. Last season, he was playing way too far back and he looked uncomfortable. This is a guy that's made to have an impact in the final third, and with so much attention paid to Romelu Lukaku, there's spaces and running spaces for midfielders to get in, and this guy, he has gotten more consistent in his finishing product. His end product's actually gotten better. He's had his best goal-scoring season of his career this season under Conte, and this is a guy that right now, we got to start talking about him, one of the best midfielders in Serie A. He's up there.
It'll be interesting to see if they can keep a hold of him. Now, with a 20-man division, no team has ever come back from finishing the previous season in 10th place and won Scudetto, the league title, the next season. Napoli just did do that one. What does that tell us about the race that we had in Italian football this year? Inter had their opportunity, let it throw away. There wasn't many challenges or true challenges to Napoli this season.
Yeah, well, first of all, congratulations to Napoli and what they're able to do. This is another historical landmark for them and another historical landmark in Italian football. This is one of the iconic clubs in football heritage in Italy. But when you look at the rest of the landscape, Ian, there was inconsistency. There were clubs that didn't know how to compete on multiple fronts. You think of Atalanta. They were right there for much of the season, about 2/3 of the way, and then Gasperini struck. The incident with Adamo Lukman, that really derailed their title credentials. You think of Milan. I mean, disaster of a season. They benefited from this being a poor season in terms of Serie A sides that we're usually talking about, but they did the job. They got it done when it mattered most down the stretch.
Real quickly, do they keep a hold of Antonio Conte, or does he decide to move on to a new opportunity that's certainly been rumoured about recently in the media?
Look, Antonio Conte, he's going to say ciao and arrivederci, he gone.
Ciao for now. Antonio Conte lifts yet again another Scudetto. That is 5 times now as a manager. Congratulations to all you Napoli fans out there. We can't always talk about the champions and how they got the job done. We also have to talk about Inter and how on earth they managed to allow this to slip away. They must be desperately disappointed, Michael Hood, but tell me how on earth this happened.
Yeah, look, this was an Inter side that I think many of us outside of Marco Messina, who he's feeling like the champion. He's feeling like a champion like Antonio Conte right now. Maybe just underneath that level of happiness. But this was a side that I think all of us expected to run away with the league, right? Because of how good they were last season, because how good they've been in the last couple seasons. On paper, they're the best side, most talent, and they re-upped with the likes of Marcus Thuram from last season and into this season. They had all the pieces, Mediterranean coming in, but some of their new signings did not hit. And outside of the front two, you got to go with where the rest of the goals are coming from, Ian, right? You think of Hakan Çalhanoğlu, didn't score as many goals, but still impactful. But when you go outside of that, Mediterranean missing in action. Joaquin Correa finally gets his second goal of the season. Arnautovic didn't score as many goals as he scored last season. That is not going to cut it. You have to score goals to win football matches and then ultimately win titles.
Once again, we got a goal from De Vrij, another defender. In Serie A this season, 24 goals have been scored by defenders, which is the most in Europe's top 5 leagues. The next team for defensive goals came from Frankfurt, who had 14. That is an immense number, and it tells you there was a lot of quality from the defensive side of the game. But when you consider that the attackers only scored 33 goals, the problem's clearly evident there. This team might need a reshuffle for next season to be able to compete once again at the top of the table.
Yeah, look, Joaquin Correa, I've watched him play throughout his career. I watched him when he was at Marseille. He ain't the guy. He's not the answer, right? He's on his last sort of legs. And I was really worried when I saw someone Inzaghi down the stretch. It was almost like, okay, we know we have the UEFA Champions League, but you still got to compete on multiple fronts. I started questioning what was the mentality? How much stock did they put on the Scudetto title? And I think once Napoli gave him a little bit of window, they looked like they were back into it. But I'm going to show you another stat, Ian Joy. Outside of not scoring goals, this was an Inter side that last season didn't give you a sniff. As soon as they went up 1-0, they weren't giving you anything. This season, they conceded 12 goals in the final 10 minutes plus of football matches, which is the most in Serie A this season. You think of the times they've been up in winning positions 30 times. 6 times ended in a draw. Those 6 points, or those 6 matches that they dropped, that ultimately cost them. You think of the last match coming into the penultimate match, they should have had that. But then Lazio, the likes of Parma, you can go through. They've just thrown matches away late on.
10-goal difference from last season compared to this season with what they had scored. 79 goals they have scored this season. They had 89 goals as they ran champions of Italy last season. They led through match day 26 through 33. Then they lost it. They obviously lost at home to Roma. They lost at Bologna. And all of a sudden it was out of their hands. 1 month ago today, they were still involved in all 3 competitions. They had the Milan game, obviously, to look forward to in Coppa Italia. They had the Barcelona game to look forward to in the Champions League. And all of a sudden, they find themselves out. How far away were they, though? Because it's not all been bad. Even though they've not been at their best, there's still been a ton of positives that you would imagine Inzaghi will build off now going into that Champions League final.
Yeah, Simone Inzaghi will think what might have been if he had a healthy Lautaro Martinez. Knowing what he knows about the lack of quality that he doesn't have anymore. A couple seasons ago, we were lauding this Inter side for the lack of quality in the final third. That's a big part of how he sets his team up. That's a big part of how they can compete on multiple fronts. There's a lack of quality in his team, I would say, in a couple of different positions, but there's no replacement for Hakan Çalhanoğlu. Christian Aslani isn't the same quality anywhere near to that, right? But I think that this is a side that I question the level of focus that they had. So much focus being put on the Champions League to get back and win that coveted trophy that they lost out on. I think the likes of Jan Bisek, not the same player that he was. Jan Bisek has given up so many goals this season, and too many of those players have had bad moments at the wrong time, I think, for Inter.
Is it a bad thing, though, for Inter to be focusing on the Champions League? I mean, this is an exclusive trophy that so few ever get to put their hands on. Obviously, Inter very recently in the final had an opportunity to do so, but obviously you would imagine that there would be some sort of consideration to try and save your players, especially with an aging team, for those big games. Did they prioritise, in your opinion, the Champions League over winning an Italian league and winning Coppa Italia?
I mean, you see in the last couple matches, you see in this match, you only have Hakan Çalhanoğlu and not many players that are on the sideline, on the bench, waiting for the biggest match of the season now, which is the UEFA Champions League. This is a side that, after winning title number 20, I mean, that's a feat. They beat Milan to that number, which is an incredible feat last season. The next level for them to really reassert themselves as a dominant world footballing power in Europe is to get that Champions League.
Yeah.
They were so close against Manchester City, and I think this is a group of players. It's haunted them, and that you win the Champions League, you right the wrongs of everything that's happened this season. You lose now, and walk away with 0 trophies, and the fact that your rivals beat you in the ways they did in Milan.
Yeah, it was an embarrassment.
That's a failure of a season.
Okay, so how do they get the job done? Obviously, looking forward to that game against Paris Saint-Germain. Now, very quickly, they have to turn the page and look forward to the Champions League because this is the elite competition. I'm talking about the King's Cup here, the Champions League. If you win that, all is pretty much forgotten. So, if you look at the starting 11, you could tell that maybe Inzaghi's already preparing for that PSG game. So tell me how on earth they get that job done against a very dangerous, electrifying, energetic, speedy Paris Saint-Germain side who score a ton of goals.
Yeah, this is a PSG side that they literally look like they cannot be stopped in terms of the mentality, in terms of their youth. But the one thing that's a strength for Inter and is a weakness for PSG, set pieces. They're one of the best set piece sides in Europe this season, and PSG, Gigi Donnarumma, we've seen him wear his Superman cape, but if he doesn't show up with the right focus, if that back line, which is undersized, to Inter, send the trees, send the ball, and notch in on a set-piece goal, then do what you did against Barcelona, defend for your lives.
For Manchester United as they face the repercussions of defeat to Tottenham in the Europa League final.
We understand that Ruben Amorim will still be manager at the beginning of next season and continues to have the full support of the club. That is despite leading them to their worst ever Premier League finish.
Amorim claimed after Wednesday's defeat he would quit if the board or fans didn't want him to stay, but there's no suggestion United bosses are considering his future. So that means Amorim will be heavily involved in the club's rebuild this summer. It's reported he'll have around £100 million in the transfer market. However, that defeat in Bilbao and missing out on Champions League football means United potentially missed out on up to another £100 million in extra revenue for the club. Now, with that, who could arrive at Old Trafford this summer? Now, earlier this week, we told you Wolves forward Matheus Cunha is expected to make the move, with United expected to pay his £62.5 million release clause. Ipswich's Liam Delap is also a target. Now, we understand he would be happy to make the move, but has been linked to Newcastle and Chelsea. So would the lure of Champions League football affect the decision? Well, if United want to make big changes to the squad, it's likely that the transfer funds will need to be topped up by sales. Saudi Pro League side Al Hilal wants to sign United captain Bruno Fernandes. Ruben Amorim said himself he's not for sale. However, Fernandes admitted if he would leave, it would be if the club wanted to sell him. Now, one player who has an uncertain future is Alejandro Garnacho. Now, he said, we'll see what happens next after being a substitute in the Europa League final. Chelsea and Napoli were linked with the winger in January. Kobbie Mainoo has also been linked with a move. He's got 2 years left on his contract and is in talks over a new deal, but speculation remains. Now, with United making moves to sign attacking players, what does the future hold for these two, Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee? Well, they've both struggled for goals, and there are reports claiming clubs in Italy are interested. But the most likely players to be sold, though, are those out on loan right now. Now, Barcelona sporting director Deco says they like Marcus Rashford. Rashford will make a decision on his future at the end of the season, but wants to play Champions League football. And what about these two? Come up here. Now, Chelsea have an obligation to sign Jadon Sancho, but could pay £5 million for him to return to Manchester United instead, while Anthony has been in great form since joining Real Betis on loan. Christian Eriksen and Victor Lindelof, meanwhile, are expected to leave when their contracts expire next month. So a lot to consider for Sir Jim Ratcliffe as he oversees football operations at the club. And there was more bad news for United's finances yesterday. Now, the share price on the New York Stock Exchange dropped significantly on Thursday. The price dropped by 8.6% in the space of just 24 hours, making it one of yesterday's biggest fallers.
What I don't buy is this idea that the whole squad is somehow unsuited, that it needs a radical clear out. Yes, they do need to do some trading. They need to move on some players, some of the higher earners, some of the older players. But if you look at players who United have let go in the last couple of years. Guys like Scott McTominay, who's now thriving at Napoli, Aaron Wan-Bissaka at West Ham, Anthony, who's had such a good season at Betis, and Rashford actually at Aston Villa. The problem is not the players. The problem is the culture that they're steeped in. Something in that club is making them underperform, and that has to be cultural. And cultures take years to change.
If we're being realistic about it, it's not like they're going to change the full starting 11. There's absolutely not the funds to do that for a start. I think there's quite a few players that either need to up their game or they need to be changed. They need some competition. Would Rasmus Højlund benefit from having someone like Liam Delap coming in and forcing him to fight for his place? I wouldn't expect there to be wholesale changes, but a lot of that will depend on how successful they are in managing to get players out. They've got this £100 million budget that they can spend, which should be able to get them their targets that they want in terms of Cunha, who should cost them around 63 million, and then Delap, if they could get him as well, that he would cost around 30, but then they can bolster that by sales. But like I said, historically in the last decade, they've not been very good at negotiating the best price for them players.
Manchester United's Europa League final defeat to Tottenham Hotspur on Wednesday. Ruben Amorim's side end a miserable season at home to Aston Villa tomorrow. And Peter Stevenson has been speaking to the United boss a short while ago. Peter, now that those few days have passed, what was Amorim's feelings on the defeat to Spurs?
Well, miserable is just one of many adjectives, I guess, that you can use. I mean, disappointing, frustrating, demoralising. It's really been a grim week for everybody concerned at Manchester United. Not only missing out on that Champions League money after that defeat by Spurs, but the team have to get themselves up for a final game at Old Trafford tomorrow against a really good Aston Villa side. And today, Ruben Amorim had to get himself up. He had to shrug off all that disappointment to face the media. And these were his initial thoughts on what the last 48 hours have been after that bad night in Bilbao.
It was really tough. It still is really tough. I think was harsh for us to lose that game. Again, I think we were the better team. We had more chances. We suffered a goal near the half time. We try everything in the second half, but it's really hard because, like I said, also before the match, that if you don't win the final, it is even harder to deal with that. It's really hard. I will not try to convince you the otherwise. It was a tough season, but we had that hope that we could win something, and that could help us to finish the season in the different way. The way we need to get up is to focus on the next game, to finish in a good way, and then we'll have time. And then when you start thinking about the future, thinking about the squad, a new season is going to start, and we will start with new ambitions and try to do better.
Peter, you mentioned the loss of Champions League revenue for next season. I suppose inevitably the fallout will see speculation on players moving away. What did Amorim have to say about rumoured exits for captain Bruno Fernandes and also Alejandro Garnacho?
Yeah, they're the two players who've captured most of the headlines in the aftermath of that defeat, and significant Saudi interest said to be in Fernandes, and he's made it clear that he wouldn't stand in the club's way if they wanted to, as he put it, cash in on him. Garnacho and his family quick to go on social media after that final, with him only making a brief substitute appearance, and I guess that doesn't really endear to the boss either, does it? So those are two assets, if you like, that Manchester United might well be looking at if they are to build up a pot of money to try and get out into the market. But it's a really difficult job trying to balance who leaves, what sort of money they can raise, and who comes in. But as you say, Fernandes and Garnacho, the two players who were the focus of this particular answer.
I always speak with my players, but the focus now is the last game. I don't know what is going to happen. We have a plan. We were prepared for both situations, with Champions League, without Champions League. We have an idea what type of squad we want, but now we have to focus on the game, because we still have the last game and we'll have time to address all that situations.
And what about the future of the man himself, Peter? Been suggestions he could walk away. He suggested previously himself that if it didn't go his way, if he couldn't impact, he might do that. What did he have to say on that topic today?
I've got to say, he seems hell-bent on rolling up his sleeves and actually trying to solve the great Manchester United puzzle. He came here early, we all know that. He would have preferred to come in and around about now, really, but he's had the benefit of 6 months. It's not been a good 6 months, but at least he's given him an insight into how big this job is. And quite possibly, I have to say, he's finding it more difficult than he thought it was even when he first arrived. But he's got a huge job on his plate. I mean, they play Villa tomorrow. Villa are in 6th. That effectively is where Manchester United want to be. They're down in 16th. They could actually finish in 17th, just one above the black line. No European football for the first time since 1990. So United are in a bit of a state. But this is what Amorim had to say about his own future and his determination to put it right.
No, it's not windows, and sometimes we don't know. Things can change fast, but to reach that kind of level that we need to be as a Manchester United is going to take time. But things I cannot say how many windows, how many years we need to reach that point, but we can improve. That is clear. These 6 months was really hard. A lot of changes, not just for me, for all the club. We did so many changes inside our club that sometimes it takes a lot of like 5 years or 3 years to change all the personnel and to change a lot of things. We changed coach in the middle of the season. The way they play, we changed. So was a really tough season. Now is that part that we need to enjoy and to focus on the future and to be positive, because we know what to do. I know how I want to play. That is clear. With all the mistakes that you guys can point to me, I know how I want to play, and that now is the excitement moment that we can change something.
You famously said before you joined here that you would have preferred ultimately to join at the end of the season around this time. I'm just wondering, the past 6 months you were talking about the challenges there. Have you been able to understand the club better, understand the problems of the club, or is there a part of you that actually still kind of wishes the club maybe said, yeah, sure, come at the end of the season?
In this moment, I'm really glad that I arrived 6 months before we start a new season. But I think we are going to avoid a lot of mistakes, and would be in the next season. So I think we now is the time that we can use all that suffering to change things in the summer. And when I say in the summer, it's not just the players. There's a lot of things that we need to change in our club. So we are doing that. We did that for 6 months. We changed in every aspect of our club. So I'm really glad in this moment. We suffered a lot, but I'm really glad that I arrived 6 months because it's going to help me a lot in the next season.
Well, I'm sure everybody at Manchester United will hope that suffering for the last 6 months will come to an end soon. But no sooner have they finished with Aston Villa tomorrow, then they're off on a really exhausting tour. They go to Kuala Lumpur and Hong Kong. They've got a game in Sweden against Leeds, and then they've got 3 games in the United States against Bournemouth, Everton and West Ham. So the demands on United certainly won't stop once that final whistle goes tomorrow. Amorim's rebuilding has to start, you would think, more or less straight away come Monday morning. He's got to get it right. He's had 6 months to see just how bad things are, and as far as Manchester United fans are concerned, things can only get better.
Let's hope so. Peter Stevenson, thank you very much.
The Champions League picture. First, a very significant breaking story. Real Madrid have made a statement announcing the appointment of Xabi Alonso. They say that he will be Real Madrid's head coach for the next 3 seasons, so from now until June 2028. And then a bit of background on him, one of the greatest legends of Madrid and world football, wore their shirt in 230, has represented his country, Spain, won the World Cup in 2010, 2 Euros, 2008, 2012, and managed to make 113 appearances. Actually began his coaching career in Real Madrid's academy, managed under 14s during the 2018-19 season and won trophies with them, and now returns to Madrid as one of the best coaches in the world. He made history, of course, at Bayer Leverkusen. He won the League Cup and German Super Cup in 3 seasons, had that wonderful unbeaten domestic campaign, and only fell short against Atalanta in the Europa League final. So what happens now? Well, all very quickly. Tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. Spanish time, Xabi Alonso presented as the new Real Madrid head coach at an event to be held at Real Madrid City. Previously, Florentino Perez, the president, will welcome him for the formal signing ceremony. Then that confirms him as the new coach for the next 3 seasons, and then he will address the media. Now, we knew that this was likely to happen once he said that he wasn't going to be continuing at Bayer Leverkusen, and then we heard that Carlo Ancelotti would become the Brazil head coach, and of course then we heard from Real Madrid that he would be departing, and they had special sort of memory of him at the game against Real Sociedad yesterday, which Madrid won, and so he ends his time in the Spanish capital on a high note. But then, well, Madridistas, you are looking at your new head coach. It's the final piece of the jigsaw. Here he is celebrating with Bayer Leverkusen fans. Got a very, very fond farewell from them. A fantastic time he spent there in Germany, but now he is back with one of his former clubs with whom he won so much silverware. Now be hoping to do so again as head coach. Xabi Alonso confirmed as Real Madrid's new manager.
Folklore, and it will be. Regis Lebris is celebrating with his backroom staff. Sunderland have made it into the Premier League. They are promoted via the playoffs in incredible circumstances. It has finished at Wembley. Sheffield United 1, Sunderland 2. Can you believe it? Kiefer Moore certainly cannot believe it. Forced the Sunderland goalkeeper into an incredible save early on in this game. That seems like a long time ago, but there is the man who has made all the headlines, who is going to ride himself into Sunderland folklore. Tommy Watson with the winning goal on 95 minutes. Can you believe it? 5 minutes into stoppage time. Sunderland cannot believe what has happened. The Sunderland fans are in ecstasy. Sheffield United on their haunches as a collective. These players were into the Premier League. They thought they were there. 14 minutes to go. They were 1-0 up. Remember, they started this season with 2 points deducted. They fought their way to the top of the table. A really bad finish at the end of this season. But they could not get it over the line because Sunderland have won it late. In the semi-finals, they won it late at the Stadium of Light with Dan Ballard's goal in stoppage time, and they have done it again at Wembley Stadium. Tommy Watson didn't have his name on the programme. How can you not have your name on the programme? Because his name is now written into Sunderland folklore forevermore. That is because it is finished at Wembley Stadium. Sunderland 2, Sheffield United 1. They have qualified for the Premier League. They are up into the Premier League after a 9-year absence, an absence that saw them go into the Championship, that saw them go into League One for 4 seasons. They fought their way back up into the Championship, and now incredible circumstances, Regis Lebris has taken them up into the Premier League. Gustavo Harmer, who assisted that first goal for Tyrese Campbell, simply cannot believe what has happened here. Regis Lebris probably cannot believe what has happened here. Goodness gracious me. Sheffield United thought they'd done it. They are staying in the Championship. Sunderland are going up into the Premier League. Reaction as it happens over on Sky Sports Football and Sky Sports Main Event, and we'll bring you the best of that right here on Sky Sports News. Sheffield United 1, Sunderland 2. The breaking news, Sunderland are promoted to the Premier League.